John Wooden said, "Be quick, but don't hurry." Hey, welcome to another Rare Leader Conversation. My name is Tony Jalen, joined by my amazing, incredible, hello, this person right here, Daniil Jalen. You know, in life, there's a many demands that are demanding and wanting our attention: family, friends, work, even ourselves at times. And we're going to go ahead and share this thought with you today. Um, and we're gonna have a little conversation around it, the importance of sometimes pausing and retreating. And here's the thought: periods of retreat are necessary to have time to build yourself to be more effective in the ways we can help others. That was quoted by a very famous person, Daniil Jalen. Periods of retreat are necessary to have time to build yourself to be more effective in the ways we can help others. When I read this morning, it reminded me of this past Sunday. It was Mother's Day. We got for all you mothers who are watching out there. Happy belated Mother's Day. I had an opportunity to go ahead and have some quality time with my bride Danielle. And typically Sundays I like to spend a lot of it in terms of my weekly planning and reflection to plan for my week. But also it gave me an opportunity to pause and really just enjoy the company of Danielle. And I think when I look at what she wrote here, periods of retreat are necessary to have time to build yourself to be more effective in the ways we can help others. I think sometimes we think of periods of retreat of, from work, which I guess I did on Sunday a little bit, but retreat from other things too. It could be social media. It could be sometimes friends. It could be pausing from your sports. Danielle, when you wrote this today, we talked a little bit about what prompted you to think about that. How do periods of retreat and sitting down and have the actual reflection, um, one, not how, but one, why do you feel it's important for you?
Well, I think sometimes it's just easy to get caught up in, I have to do this, I have to do that. I'm running here, I'm going there, this is going on, that's going on. And I think that we lose sight of the opportunities to say no because we need to also take care of ourselves. And instead of constantly thinking that we're doing best to others by saying yes and being there and doing things that we wear ourselves out and don't give us ourselves the opportunity to refuel.
Yeah, and I mean, I can attest to that. Last week, I really was making an admission to do deeper connection with, like some people like call it staff, I call it my team, and I get have an opportunity to lead over 70 people. And I scheduled my assistant to say, hey, let's go ahead and do connection calls, 30-minute connection calls with people. And I didn't put any parameters around it. I said, just schedule away. And she's being great by just scheduling away. And I had days when there was 12 meetings in a day, like 12 meetings. If you can add that up, there wasn't much time to go ahead and breathe some of those days because some of them did not last only 30 minutes. I think to your point, one of the ways to bring in those times of rest is to say no instead of saying yes. Because I think it's easy just to go, 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 go. And I think when I go through that, sometimes I go like, what did I really just accomplish here? Like, what really happened? And I think that's the second thing to think about when you want to take a retreat. It's or when you're doing so much is asking yourself, what is my outcome I want to get out of this? You do that often, every so often with Ezekiel. He's, hey, go spend time with dad. It's not working out. It's going to go ahead and spend time with dad. I think that's an important thing to think about is when you're doing the different things is to take it through a filter of like, what's the outcome? What's the result I want to have happen by doing this? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think when for us now, we're looking at heading into the fall and having a senior, and just how important now all of a sudden that time is coming to spending time together. Because we had 17 years of all, it seems like the longest time, right? You have 17 years, you have 18 years before they leave, and that time does fly by. And now all of a sudden you're down to that last like year before they head off to college. And now we're trying to like scramble and put as much time in as possible. When I think when we're in the middle of it and we're running to activities when they're younger and doing different things, each part of life is as important as the next. And so just really being able to take the time to cherish all that and spending that time and being focused and intentional with it, I think leads into all areas of life. If we're not being intentional, it's just going to go by. And you get to a point where you're like, well, what just happened? Because you were just going and you weren't taking the time to appreciate all the things along the way.
You said there's something that I thought that really stood out to me. It's each moment is as important as the next. Can you expound on that a little bit more?
Well, I think, you look at little moments as, like for you, it might be important, but like to the other next person, it might not. So it's like, oh yeah, but each moment for yourself is important, and to be able just to treasure that personally, whether or not other people are appreciating it, is important to take in.
And to your point, it may not be important to other people, even though it might be a little moment, but it's not so much about what other people is, it's about what you make of it. I think also to your point of thinking, man, we're gonna be an empty nester here soon. Like this is a real thing. And I think because we know the time is more limited, at least for me, I cherish it even more. I really focus now on being even more intentional in my conversations. And I know everything can't be philosophical in every conversation we have. For me, it's really just, focusing on developing that relationship where there's open communication to know that, our son can come to us whenever happens. Because the truth of the matter, life is like this. And there's those times when you just need someone to talk to. And you don't need them to say anything. You just need them to be there for you. So I've been really working on being intentional of creating that space for our son. And, we'll have a car ride, a half an hour car ride. I'll wait to say anything for the first 5 minutes and I won't say a word. And I'm just thinking, okay, is he going to say anything right now? He's kind of quiet too. But eventually something comes out. Eventually something comes out. And that goes back to your thought. Periods of retreat are necessary to have time to build yourself to be more effective in the ways we can help others. And that my period of retreat could be from me talking because I like to talk sometimes and just be present. So I think we covered a few things. Number one is be your willingness to say no. Number two, we've talked about how to really be intentional, like living a life more with intention, just versus just living it. Right? There's an old saying that says, "Everyone dies, few people live," and the few people live is because we just go through life and just go, go, go. And I was talking to someone yesterday and they were talking about how their whole life they've struggled. Like they like, oh, it's like, somehow things always worked out for them, but they're like, we would like to have that, cabin. We would like to do more trips. They're like, the only trip we ever took was our honeymoon. It was the only trip we took. And I think about for myself is, I really work on creating memories for us as a family. Because I remember the one trip I took when I was growing up, it was to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Don't know why we took a trip there, but it was a trip to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I really worked hard as a father and as a husband, and as a friend to create those experiences that we can always look back at. Hey, you remember that one time when we did this? So I think, the third thing when it comes down to periods of retreat, are necessary to have time to build yourself to be more effective in the ways we can help others is scheduling it. You know, Daniil and I would have our lunches together or breakfasts together. And the last couple of weeks, we really didn't. And I felt it. I felt it. So I'm like, all right, we got to get this back on the calendar here because it's important for me to go ahead and invest in our relationship. And I think that's one thing too. When you have children or you have other demands, it could be your business or whatnot, that I don't know if we don't, it's not that we forget because I think everyone believes that they're important relationships, right? I think it's that we don't be intentional in scheduling things. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things like, oh, we'll have time later, or we'll have time later. And then all of a sudden it gets to the point we're like, who is this person that we're gonna spend this time with later if we don't continue to like nurture the relationship? I think that it can become foreign, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't want, like, what am I doing? So I think that it's important to, even in the busy times, just to take like the 15 minutes some days and just, how was your day? Like, connect and um make sure that we're being intentional in that conversation, not just, as an afterthought either. So I think that it's important to be able to do that with one another.
So that's the third thing we're talking about is schedule it. I mean, it's interesting because I could tell my family, even my extended family, they've gotten really used to, okay, let's schedule it. Let's put it in the calendar. I was talking to my brother-in-law last week and we work out of the same office building and we see each other in passing, but we hadn't connected for a little bit. And I go, we need to go ahead and have breakfast. All right. He goes, when? He pulls up his calendar. I'm like, that's a Tony move right there.
Mm.
And so we had a great breakfast just the other day at 6:30 in the morning. It was just like, it was just good to connect and for me to hear about his successes. And I think too, it's that if we don't make the intentional time to connect, we pass over the opportunity to celebrate others, to learn about others, to not just communicate with others, but to connect with others. So I think that's the next step in terms of understanding these periods of retreat is actually scheduling the time. And it doesn't have to be a whole vacation weekend. It doesn't have to be, this big thing. And this Daniil has taught me over the years is sometimes it could go for that walk, which sometimes I'm like, I don't want to go for a walk, but I'm thinking about it's an opportunity to connect and create a great relationship. Um, I think another times when it comes to the periods of retreat, necessary to have that time. I'm gonna keep on repeating it to build yourself to be more effective in the ways we can help others. I think it also can be a power in terms of retreating from social media. And it was maybe a month ago. I mean, I'm pretty consistent on posting on LinkedIn and whatnot. Someone asked me, and it stood out to me. So, were you like God, Tony? I'm like, well, why? Well, I didn't see you post anything. So if you don't ever think that anyone's watching your stuff or seeing your stuff when you're sharing stuff, believe me, there's more window gazers than there are people who go and shop with you. And it made me really think back, it was good. Like, I'm like, what? I don't need to put anything out right now. So I didn't have nothing really to say. But sometimes there's the art of consistently showing up for yourself. So I think in terms of social media, I think we got to schedule those breaks in there. Like if you go onto your phone, if you're a Google user, I cannot speak to this, but I can speak to the Apple people. Go onto your phone and look how much time you've invested in social media. And if you're this person that says you don't have time to read, you don't have time to do these things, go and look at your social media and how much time you were on Facebook or Instagram or good for sakes. I've gotten caught in the vortex of TikTok and go, "Wait, I just spent 5 hours this week on social media. Some people are more than that. I encourage you to do a retreat. Pause from it. Life does go on. I was one time talking to someone recently, and they're like, "Oh, you probably knew this happened in my life." And I'm like, "When did that happen?" And they're like, "Oh, I put it on social media." No, I didn't know. Because there's sometimes I just post and I don't actually look at all the posts. Instead to share. So think of seriously, just take a moment if you're watching here today. Think about something that you've been like all gas, no brakes on. Could be your business. It could be even in a relationship. You could be all gas, no brakes in your relationship and neglecting other areas. That can happen. The young you young people out there. I know how it gets. You start dating, and I remember when I was in my late teens, I dated someone, and my dad would always call me, "Son, here's my phone number." I was non-existent to my family. I'll admit that, family. If you're watching this, I apologize. I was non-existent. Uh, I know that might sound weird because we just talk about emotional fostering relationships. Sometimes you just need a you break, a you break. So as we go ahead and finish up here today, Danielle, and talking about periods of retreat, and that necessary time to take that pause to really fill your own bucket, to fill other people's buckets. What would be any final thoughts that you'd have to share today?
Just look at different areas for yourself. It doesn't need to be, like you said, a whole weekend or anything like that. It can be maybe 30 minutes a day where you just sit
Yeah.
in silence, or you go for a walk, or you sit outside now that it's nice out, and just be like, just, you know, be with your thoughts, filter through them. Because sometimes I think the moments of silence are a little more unbearable than being on social media, scrolling through your phone, doing constantly doing something. I think it's hard to just not do something. And I think it's important to just take that break and be okay with being still.
That's scary for a lot of people. I know there was periods of time in my life where I did not want to be silent with my thoughts. Nope, no bueno, no good. So I made it busy with other thoughts. No, that's a good point. I think my final thoughts when it comes to this is that there's power in reflecting. When you stop and reflect, you can really inspect the different areas of your life, your health, your spiritual relationships, your work. And it gives you to inspect and redirect your energies. It reminds me of, I heard something from Wayne Dwyer. And I'll leave you all with this thought here today. He says, when you change the way you view things, the way you view things change. When you change the way you view things, the way you view things change. So when you look at this thought from the famous Daniel Jalen, periods of retreat are necessary to have time to build yourself to be more effective in the ways we can help others. Invest in that time to go for a little retreat, whether it be for that walk, like Daniel mentioned. It can change whatever you're viewing and say, wait a second, that's not that bad after all. Oh, there's an opportunity there. And as a rare leader, someone who's resourceful, adaptable, resilient, and willing to engage with others, it gives you an opportunity to truly make that impact that you were designed to make, because you are a difference maker. And so we want to thank you today for investing the time to connect with us. We are going to do a actual retreat ourselves for a couple weeks here to go back into the lab, go back and just sit back and think about how we want to go ahead and take this rarely discussion with you weekly. We've been doing this consistently now for over 2 years now, hasn't it been now? And each and every week, consistently coming in here to share with you guys and with our thoughts, our lessons to learn. because we want to make an impact. We want to make a difference. But we're going to take a 2-week break, and then we'll come back to you. Who knows what kind of program could be unveiling to you as we continue to take our retreat to bring more value to you. So again, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Go back and watch the other YouTube videos that we've done. There's some gems there, as my son would say. There's some bangers there. And feel free to see us on YouTube or on Twitter, or as well be part of the Rare Leader private Facebook group. Just make a request. Until next week, actually 3 weeks, I'm Tony Jalen, joined by the wonderful
Danielle Jalen.
Onward and Upwards.